Judging from the responses to certain key cutscenes I've seen so far, I feel safe in saying that I'm not alone in this beauty of a game having made me ugly cry so many times already. So here's a collection of 5 moments in Tears of the Kingdom I've come across so far that have given me the most emotional damage. Link failing to catch Zelda. This is a strong one that happens in the very first few minutes of the game, which sets up the premise of the story of Tears of the Kingdom for us. Zonai Hand, that we know now belongs to Rauru, ceases to bind Ganondorf and the Demon King awakens once more. The seismic activity that occurs as a result causes the floor to fall away and Zelda to fall, with Link diving to catch her. Just moments before though, Link's right arm and his health and stamina had just been absolutely decimated by Ganondorf's Gloom attack. This was no small injury too. We know Link is a highly trained and renowned Hylian knight. We're well aware of his capabilities and strengths from playing Breath of the Wild, and yet this injury causes him to fall to his knees in agony. But the second he realises that Princess Zelda is in danger, he leaps to try and save her despite the level of pain he must be in, and how weak he must feel after such an attack. It really is such a devastating moment when you consider the emotional build-up in Breath of the Wild, which was facilitated by retrieving Link's lost memories. These memories gave us a greater context to the development of the relationship between Link and Zelda, and how close they became, and for me at least, gave me the sense of urgency underpinning the main quest to not just defeat the Calamity Ganon and save Hyrule, but to reunite Link and Zelda once again. But once again, in the first few minutes of Tears of the Kingdom, they're torn away from each other. Number 2. Zelda keeping Link's hairband. This was definitely a bittersweet moment to come across in Tears of the Kingdom. When you visit Hateno Village, Link's house is still there from the previous game. However, it shows signs that both Link and Zelda have been living here together, with a diary entry indicating that Zelda had a secret workspace built so she could complete her work in private. In this private workspace, we find a chest containing the very same hairband Link wore throughout Breath of the Wild. The fact that it's described as being a sentimental item from times past and kept specifically in Zelda's secret study definitely points towards a much closer and more sentimental relationship between the two. It's bittersweet, as by this point we've already lost Zelda once again, and we're just now discovering fragments of what their time together was like in the time just after the calamity and preceding the events of Tears of the Kingdom, giving greater context to just how devastating the loss of Zelda must be for Link once again. Number 3. Hudson saying goodbye to Madison. When we visit Tarrytown again, we get to see how Hudson's family has developed and grown since his marriage to Ronderson in Breath of the Wild. The couple now have a daughter together called Madison, who is preparing to live in Gerudo Town and complete her education as per Gerudo customs. Hudson is shown to be an emotional, dedicated and loving father, and this whole side quest was wonderfully wholesome. Both Hudson and Madison are keen to help each other one last time before her departure, which leads to them working together on a hot air balloon project. Of course, helped along by Link. At the culmination of the quest, the family say an emotional goodbye and Madison leaves Tarrytown with her Gerudo guide, and she won't get to see her family again for some time. Number 4. Tulin's awakening as a sage. This was definitely one of the more emotional cutscenes for me, as the game generally points us towards completing the Rito Village local quest before the others, so Tulin is the first character we see awaken as a sage. He's just such a sweet kid. He's adorably earnest and keen to help Link in the coming battle against Ganondorf, and for me, it was a strong reminder of child Link having to step up to save Hyrule too when he was still just as young. The cutscene when we return to Rito Village was particularly wholesome, as we see his father pass along his bow and recognise Tulin as a Rito warrior for the first time, as he's now learned the importance of working as a team. However, it does also unleash a strong paternal sense I never realised I had, because Tulin is still just a child. But he's being so brave and he's overjoyed that he's proved himself in the eyes of his father. It's all adorably wholesome, and it was a lovely scene to witness for the first awakening of a sage. Number 5. The completion of the Dragon's Tears quest. I felt myself welling up so many times when viewing the memories of part of this quest, but the one that got me the most was definitely the final memory you collect at the end of the quest. Watching Princess Zelda sacrifice herself to become the Light Dragon, knowing that her last thoughts were of Link, and the implications that she's very much taken the slow route back to the present day to aid Link in the battle against Ganondorf all left me reeling. We've seen previous incarnations of Princess Zelda be powerful and self-sacrificing before, but certainly not like this. I for one have loved seeing her character develop and the implications for what this means in terms of her relationship with Link. It struck me particularly hard that in an earlier memory, Mineru states that once someone swallows a secret stone and becomes a dragon, they completely lose themselves. Yet Princess Zelda's feelings and drive are strong enough that she retains her memories to help Link understand what is happening in the future, suggesting that there is still a part of Princess Zelda that is aware of what's happening within the Light Dragon, so all may not be lost. Number 6. Curing Nana's Gloom sickness. This is a short one, but it did strike a chord for me in particular as a Zelda fan because of the memory of curing Grandma's sickness in Wind Waker. Sick grandmothers in Nintendo are guaranteed to get me every single time, and I'll be damned if I don't absolutely pause the main quest until Nana is feeling better. Number 7. Rebuilding Lowerland Village. Everything about rebuilding Lowerland Village left me in tears at some point. From the villagers' reactions when they returned to find their houses and places of work standing once more as if they'd never been demolished, to the truly touching feast at the end, even with Bolson's dancing. Even the small side quests that occur as a result of rebuilding the village are all incredibly wholesome and emotional to witness. This follows on from the ruffian-infested village side quest, whereby Link defeats the pirates that have invaded the peaceful and idyllic beachside village. Bolson, having been put up in the mayor's residence as a visitor, is keen to help rebuild once the threat has ceased, as a thank you for the hospitality he has been shown as a visitor to the village. Working together, you rebuild each residence and place of business, much to the delight of the returning villagers who had each fled the village as refugees. It was just such a sweet and satisfying moment to see families returning to their homes and the village rebuilt and thriving once more. Tears of the Kingdom is a stunning, well thought out and incredibly executed game. But that doesn't change how much darker it is compared to Breath of the Wild. We see ordinary people getting sick and being deeply affected by Ganondorf's rising, as there are new and more enemies that are much more developed, entire populations displaced and suffering, and it's nice to be able to return some light and normalcy in the middle of such a dangerous and chaotic time in Hyrule.
But there's some good in this world, Mr. Frodo, and it's worth fighting for.
Thank you for watching my video. Are there any more emotional moments you've come across in Tears of the Kingdom that aren't on the list? Feel free to comment them down below and we can all cry together. If you like this video, please feel free to like and subscribe, as it really does help the channel. While my content is leaning heavily on Tears of the Kingdom for now, I will be covering other Zelda games in the future. And hopefully, I'll see you next time.